Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a low table near a window, a small statue, a bowl of jasmine, a plate with sticky rice, and a single stick of incense curling up into the light. What feels ordinary in that room is also deeply, quietly sacred. Welcome to Ancient Echoes. I'm your host, Samnang Bradley.
And I'm Rachana Solv. In today's episode, we're opening the doors to the homes of Khmer people, not to pry, but to listen. We'll walk through the objects, the daily gestures, and the stories that make household altars central to Cambodian life. The layers matter. Let's unpack that.
Here's what I promise. By the end of this hour, you'll know the history behind domestic shrines, be able to describe common altar objects and offerings, and understand how these practices adapt when families move to the city or abroad. We'll also hear anonymized voices from home, short memories that show variation across regions and generations. Listen closely. This matters because the everyday teaches us so much about continuity and change.
First, a little context. Household altars in Cambodia connect to a long history where village, temple, and home are not separate worlds, but overlapping fields of care. The household shrine, sometimes a small shelf or a spirit house at the property edge, is where people maintain relationships with ancestors, protective spirits, and sometimes images associated with Buddhist practice. Anthropologists use terms like altar, spirit house, and offering categories, but the lived terms you'll hear are often simpler. The shrine, the place for the elders, the offering table. The cultural significance is that these are daily, ordinary acts of memory and protection.
Historically, domestic shrines have roots in animist practices that predate modern institutions, and they later layered alongside Buddhism and local customs. The result is a rich, flexible set of practices. You'll see incense burned at dawn, rice placed for hungry spirits, and little figurines or photos that link a living household to its ancestors. The elders taught us that maintaining these small offerings keeps social ties intact. Families show respect, ask for well-being, and mark life cycle moments through simple acts. Remember, context is everything. Not every home follows the same pattern.
Now, let's look at the anatomy of a typical household altar. When you step closer, what do you see? A carved wooden figure or small Buddha image might sit at the center. To one side, an ancestral photo or tablet. Behind, a mirror or cloth that frames the space. Offerings include fresh flowers, often jasmine or lotus petals, bowls of water, plates of steamed rice, fruit, sometimes sweets, and incense. A spoon or small ladle can be more than a tool. It's a way of sharing a meal with those who are honored. The material choices, brass, wood, palm leaf, tell us about local craft traditions and what families could afford or inherit. The deeper story is that objects are both practical and symbolic. A palm leaf fan, for instance, can signify care and refreshment for a spirit in the heat.
Iconography matters too. A carved figure can signal a connection to a protective deity, or to the Buddha in a household that observes Buddhist practices. Photos anchor the altar in family lineage, grandparents, parents who shaped daily rituals. Small temples sometimes donate miniature images. Local artisans sell carved pieces at markets. The path an object took, a hand-me-down spoon, a bought figure, a gift from a monk, is part of its meaning. Consider this perspective. A simple bowl of rice is not just food, it's a relational offering, a way to enact care across the boundary of life and remembering.
Let's move from objects to practice. Daily offerings often follow a quiet sequence. Morning offerings of water and flowers, midday checks when someone sweeps the space and replaces wilted blossoms, and evening lights or incense. During life cycle moments, births, weddings, funerary remembrances, the altar's role intensifies. Families may add larger plates of food, perform specific chants, or invite visitors to offer merit. Festivals bring seasonal shifts, extra offerings during harvest time, or special flowers during Pum Ben, when ancestor remembrance is prominent. The tradition teaches us that ritual rhythm structures time. Preparing an offering is a way of marking mourning, meal, and memory.
If you were to sit with someone as they perform these acts, you'd notice gestures repeated across decades, hands held in a respectful posture, a small spritz of water across the shrine, a breath as incense is lit. These are embodied practices that teach younger family members how to care. In many homes, children learn by watching. That's where cultural continuity lives, in the copying of quiet gestures and the passing on of small, practical know-how.
Now I'll share a set of brief voices from home, anonymized memories collected from interviews and published ethnographies. Listen for variation in feeling. First voice. When my mother woke at dawn, she would make a small bowl of rice and lay it on the shelf. She would speak quietly to my grandmother's photo, not like words, more like folding care into the air. Second voice. In the city, we have less space, so the altar sits on a small shelf near the window. We light incense and offer fruit. Sometimes the neighbor adds flowers when she visits. Third voice. After my father died, the family gathered around the altar at night. We left some food, and it felt like he was still tied to the house.
These short memories show variety, rural and urban, older and younger generations, but a shared thread. Altars are places where ongoing relationships are practiced. They're not static museum pieces. That brings us to adaptation and diaspora.
When families move to Phnom Penh or overseas, altars move with them, sometimes literally as a small wooden shrine, sometimes as a practice recreated on a bookshelf. In diaspora communities, practical constraints shape how altars are maintained: limited space, local regulations, and new materials. Yet the meaning persists. You might find tuna cans used as offering bowls, or incense burned in living room apartments. This adaptability is cultural resilience. The pattern shows us how traditions transform rather than disappear.
There are ethical points to keep in mind for listeners who are visitors or heritage travelers. First, observe with respect. Take photos only with permission, avoid touching altar objects, and follow host's lead. Second, don't try to replicate rituals without understanding their meaning. They're not performances for outsiders. Third, learn from local voices. Community-led museums, Cambodian scholars, and diaspora cultural organizations provide context and resources. If you want to engage, ask open questions like, "Would you tell me about this object?" An invitation that centers local authority.
We'd love to hear from you. Share respectful observations, a photo of a detail you admired, a thoughtful question, or a story of how your family keeps memory alive. Tag us on social media and include a short note about where you encountered the altar. The elders taught us to listen before speaking. The cultural significance is best learned through conversation.
Before we close, let's recap the key takeaways. Household altars are everyday sites of memory and protection. Objects, from carved figures to spoons, carry social histories. Daily offerings structure family life, and adaptation in cities and abroad shows cultural resilience. Above all, these practices invite respectful attention, not exoticizing curiosity.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Ancient Echoes. We hope these stories helped you see Cambodian history and culture in a deeper, more human way.
The echoes of the past live on in people's voices, memories, and everyday lives. Thank you for listening and for making space for these stories.
If this episode resonated with you, please follow Ancient Echoes on your favorite podcast app and share it with someone who might appreciate these conversations.
You can also connect with us and share your own stories or questions at our social handles and website. We'd love to hear how these echoes sound in your life. Let's unlock the echoes of history together.
Until next time, thank you for listening to Ancient Echoes.
In the quiet of night, I whispered my plea, holding her close, hoping for her decree. I called upon spirits, asked them to guide, to take her heart and lead her by my side. So I drew her near, traced her brow so fair, my sight this way. Sacred power, Swahi, mighty spirit awakened. By the master's right, let her heart be gently taken. Let her follow me now by vow and by sign. I hear these words, oh teacher, witness this plea. Oh, my sacred power, Swahi.